All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of the Victorious Ones podcast. I know it's not the normal time that you usually see me on, especially on a day like this on Wednesdays. Of course, this is your host King Von Jr. First and foremost, to get those things out, to get the usuals out the way. Like I said, I guess because of a schedule, sort of a scheduling thing. As of right now, just for this day. I thought about doing it tomorrow. I was like, nah, you know what? Let me go and just get this out now. So happy Women's History Month. And especially when it comes to the topic of discussion today. She is the conversation, none other than Miss Mercedes Mone, formerly known as Sasha Banks, government name Mercedes Varnado. And of course, that's why for those that are watching by way of StreamYard, watching live, that's why I call myself Mandalorian, because today is also Mandalorian debut day, or rather, it's the season premiere of the Mandalorian. Like I said, pretty solid episode. You know what I mean? So as far as that, but and of course, I look forward to doing a, I guess, like a overall recap review of the Mandalorian. Once the season's over. Just to get everything done all together. But the thing is, like I said, most importantly, of course, for those that are watching live, of course, you can follow on social media. The handles are right there at the bottom of the screen. Twitter, 301 King Von Jr., Victory Pod 1, IG, Mr. King Von Jr., Victorious Ones Podcast. And of course, the Victorious Ones podcast is sponsored by UPR, Unpopular Review. And of course, I'm also social media producer for Perfect Plex Talk Radio. But yeah, like I was saying, sorry about that. Like I was saying, in regards to in regards to Mercedes Mone, of course, congratulations once again, as I've said before, to her being the current IWGP Women's Champion, which is a major notch on her belt. Excuse the expression, no pun intended, but it's a huge, feather in the hat. Something highly impressive on the resume. Anytime you could have experience, wrestling in Japan. Sorry about that. Yeah, like I said, anytime you have that type of experience, have that type of like a wrestling experience in Japan, that means a whole lot. And of course, I'm going to go into sort of a rundown of of her career leading up to this point. Because of the fact that in spite of the amazing success, the success that she's been having in New Japan, and just the way that she has bet on herself. That says a lot. The fact that she's bet on herself and has delivered. So in regards to that, outside of that, just for this to be her statement, just to make a name for herself outside of WWE, like I said, with this, the stuff that she's doing with the Mandalorian, and other other various projects. But I still like to go into for a while, at least a recap of like I said, of an amazing, illustrious career that she's had up to this point. Because even before she left WWE, you very well say that she has established herself as a legend, as a women's wrestling legend. I mean, she has a resume that speaks for itself. And so and not only that, but also named her one of my of course, last year I did my top 10 women's wrestlers list of all time. At least it's like in my top 5 most listened to episodes. You know what I mean? But the thing about it is that I have her in my top 3, not just in top 10, top 5, but top 3 overall. Of course, number 1 was China, number 2 was Charlotte, and number 3 Sasha / Mercedes now. And the thing is, for this month, I look forward to doing women's spotlights, and at least whether it's you spotlighting somebody's career or doing an interview, So like I say, that's my way of giving back for this month, because all throughout last month, hope everyone enjoyed the Black History Month as well. Because the things all throughout last month, I was doing Black History highlights on my social media pages. You know what I mean? So in that regard, like I said, I definitely want to do the best I can and make sure to keep the same energy when it comes to women's wrestling. So without further ado, we're going to go into going, go into what has made Sasha Banks and Mercedes Renato um, who she is now. You know what I mean? So of course, in June 2012, that's when Mercedes, first joined WWE. So she already spent had a decade long career. You know, and so of course, after of course, after she succeeded in a tryout, then that's when she was assigned, to NXT, and that's when the moniker, the name Sasha Banks was born, and of course, her first match was a loss to Paige, but of course, um, of course, that was not enough to keep her down, so of course, um, sorry, like I said, things are early on. She would team up with Paige and programs with Summer Rae and things like that, and so of course, so of course, early on, she competed in the NXT Women's Championship tournament to determine the very first NXT Women's Champion, inaugural champion, but eventually she ended up losing to Summer Rae in the first round. So of course, those are, like I say, those are, like at least those are like sort of stopping grounds, if you will, and and so of course, of course, after so of course that so of course after that loss, and then of course turn on Page and everything like that. That's when we saw the genesis of her heel turn when she first became a villain, and it took and it was cut up, and of course cut a promo with Summer Rae, and that's when she adopted the new moniker known as the Boss. You know what I mean? So so of course, like I say, the Boss obviously was originated in NXT, and so of course, of course one of her first, like one of her original main roster appearances was at WrestleMania 30 when when her, Charlotte, and Alexa Bliss all accompanied Triple H to the ring, and during his sorry, of course during his entrance in that first match against Dan Bryan. So this is when Triple H came out, dressed up like kind of like a kind of like dressed up like Shao Kahn, but with like all gold and everything like that. So like I said, dressed up like Shao Kahn, but but with the gold helmet. Like I said, that was like I said, like that night at WrestleMania 30, that was like I said, Sasha was one of the women that came out along with Triple H, and so of course, I'm sorry, during that same time, that's when her and Charlotte, defeated, defeated Bailey and Becky Lynch. Only have I said, only for Charlotte, only for Charlotte to leave Sasha high and dry, to get attacked by her eventual dance partner Bailey. So of course, of course that's when the whole BFF group had been disbanded. So I think BFF consisted of like I said, consists of Sasha, and like I said, consists of Sasha and Summer Rae, and so so as far as I think it was somebody else as well, but like I said, this is much earlier in Sasha's career, and so like I said, and the thing about it is that it's interesting that that on the July 3rd episode of NXT, when Sasha and Charlotte defeated Bailey and Becky, is that all four of them, would eventually be interconnected, intertwined, in what we now know as the Four Horsewomen. And so, and of course, um, and of course, their paths would really reach sort of like a fever pitch, if you will, um, in at NXT Takeover Fatal Four Way on September 11th. And so, so of course, like sorry, um, so so let's say in regards to I'm sorry, like saying in regards to that NXT takeover for the four way match. Um, so, like let me slow down. Um, I'm sorry about that. Like I s- like gosh, yeah, like I say it wasn't necessarily a fatal four way match, but itself, but it was a match. And NXT takeover for fatal four way was Charlotte versus Bailey, rather, rather for the NXT Women's Championship, rather for the NXT Women's Championship. And so, of course, Sasha attacked Bailey after the match. And so, of course, during the same time, that's when Becky had turned on Bailey and aligned herself with Sasha. Of course, after Sasha defeated Bailey, and so of course, this is when, this is when, Sasha eventually set her sights on Charlotte for the NXT Women's Championship, which led to a match NXT Takeover, Our Evolution on December 11th with Charlotte's championship on the line. Of course, of course, sorry, of course, Charlotte ended up retaining NXT Takeover Our Evolution, and so of course, 2 weeks later, like I said, 2 weeks later on Christmas, Sasha received a rematch at NXT, only be unsuccessful, once again, and so sorry, of course, and like I said, after several, failed um, attempts, to win the NXT championship, so of course, eventually, on February 11th, 2015, an NXT Takeover rival, Sasha finally won the NXT Women's Championship by defeating Charlotte in a fatal four-way match. So this is the ultimate fatal four-way match. My fault, my mistake in regard, because I was thinking about NXT takeover fatal four-way, but that pay-per-view wasn't a fatal four-way with the Horsewomen. So that was just, like I said, that was just a standard one-on-one match with Charlotte versus Bailey. But this one right here, NXT Takeover rival, in February 2015, was the was ultimate four horsewomen fatal four-way match. Let me get my words together. I'm tongue tied. This was where the four horsewomen had their fatal four-way. Unfortunately, we never got to see that on the main roster, for whatever reasons. But like I said, and of course, in this match, this one Sasha Banks finally won the NXT Women's Championship by pinning Charlotte in this match. Which also involved Becky and Bailey. And so, of course, during her run as NXT Women's Champion, she successfully retained the championship. Against Charlotte twice. She also beat Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch. Um, and so, of course, Sasha will go on to be the NXT Women's Champion for 192 days. However, her run will come to an end at NXT Takeover Brooklyn, one of the greatest women's matches that I've ever seen, whether it's NXT, the main roster, what have you, no matter what. This raised the bar in so many different ways. Like I said, this NXT Takeover Brooklyn. Um, of course, Sasha lost the championship to arch rival Bailey, dance partner Bailey. And this was the end of her 192-day reign. And of course, this match was highly received, critically acclaimed. By fans and critics alike. And it was named Match of the Year at the NXT End of the Year Awards, as for PWI. Um, and so, of course, in the rematch, in the first women's Iron Man match, or the Iron Woman match, NXT Takeover Respect. Sasha was defeated once again was defeated again by Bailey. You know, so, and she lost by two fall in a two out like at least she lost through 2 out of 3 falls, and this will eventually be, of course, this will eventually be Sasha's last match in NXT before she was promoted to the main roster. Um, even though Sasha officially made her main roster debut on July 13th, 2015, when Stephanie McMahon called for obviously a revolution in the WWE Divas division. And this was the start of this was the official start of the women's revolutionary era. And so of course, of course that night you had Team Bella with Alicia Fox and the Bella Twins, and Stephanie called for revolution to shake things up, and that's when she announced Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch, and um, that night ended with 3 of the 4 horsewomen um, giving their their submission holds to Team Bella, and that signified the changing of the guard, if you will, when it came to the women's division, you know, and so like I said, like I said, like I said, like that moment right there, you could see um, the changing of the guard. You can see the tide starting to change and starting to shift. However, Sasha would obviously align herself with with future women's tag team champion partner Naomi as well as Tamina, and this is when they call themselves Team Bad, which is an acronym for Beautiful and Dangerous. And and the thing that they were the most famous for was yelling out "Unity," which was a nod to that famous the famous skit on Chappelle's show, where Dave Chappelle was dressed up as Rick James, in that Charlie Murphy skit where he punched Charlie in the forehead and said and yelled out "Unity." You know what I mean? So that was a little like a little nod to that. Um, and so of course with that, and of course in Sasha's official an official WWE um, pay per view debut pay per view debut, so like her official main roster um, debut pay per view at Battleground, which is on July 19th, the day before my birthday, by the way. Sasha was in a triple threat match against Charlotte and Brie Bella, and sorry, Charlotte won, and so of course this is during the time where Charlotte had become the Divas champion, and um, of course spoiler alert, Charlotte let's say spoiler alert, Charlotte would continue to be the Divas champion going into WrestleMania when the Divas title had been retired, and that's when it eventually transitioned to into the women's title that we know of now. But yeah, but yeah, but of course, um, like I said, it's over. Um, so of course, the next night after Battleground, Sasha defeated Paige twice. First, first by submission. First by submission on Raw, and in a tag team match, and then again the next week on Raw in a singles match. You know, so of course after defeating Nikki by submission in a non-title match, after defeating Nikki well actually at this point Nikki was still the Divas champion. So after beating Nikki by submission non-title match, Sasha competed in the first ever Divas #1 contenders match, which was a beat the clock challenge, and she wrestled Paige to a time limit draw, and automatically Charlotte, obviously was the #1 contender, um, and eventually Charlotte Charlotte becomes Divas champion, and of course that sets the tone, sets course for what we will see at WrestleMania 32. You know, and so of course, um, after taking some time off TV, Sasha returned at the Royal Rumble, and of course, by this time I think it was pretty obvious that she had been transitioned away and moved on. Um, moved on from Team Bad, only to be attacked by her former teammates Naomi and Naomi and Tamina um, during the match. And eventually, this is what turned Sasha into a fan favorite. This turned her into a babyface. Um, and so, you know, so of course, this led to a tag team match at Fastlane, where Sasha teamed up with fellow horsewoman Becky Lynch to defeat Team Bad. Um, and so, so of course, after that, Sasha and Becky competed in a number one contenders match for Charlotte's championship, only for this match to end in a draw, because of a double pin. And obviously, this led the way to what we saw at WrestleMania 32. And by the way, I was actually there at WrestleMania 32 the first time in Dallas, as I've said before. And thing I like about it was my favorite entrance was Sasha's entrance, um, when she came out with her legendary cousin Snoop Dogg. And of course, another great thing about the entrance was uh, her tribute to Eddie Guerrero. And if you look carefully, Sasha's tights, are actually designed just like Eddie Guerrero's tights. The tights Eddie Guerrero had when he beat Brock Lesnar and No Way Out for the WWE Championship. And another nod is that during the match, Sasha even did a frog splash. Unfortunately, Sasha came up short, which which became almost like which became somewhat of like which eventually became sort of like a recurring pattern with her when it came to a WrestleMania track record, at least up until her last match in last WrestleMania match in WWE. So of course, um, like I said, in this let's say in this inaugural WWE Women's Championship match, Charlotte came out as the winner. So of course, um, after taking a brief hiatus, um, Sasha eventually returned to WWE in June, and this is when she reignited her feud with Charlotte Flair over the Women's Championship. And I think that the biggest criticism of this, of this feud was how this belt had been passed back and forth like a hot potato. You know what I mean? So, in regards to the the like numerous title changes, got to the point where I think fans are starting to lose count. And one of the biggest criticisms um, that Sasha always had was that, especially when it came to the main roster, was that she was never really known for having like a super lengthy title run. You know, it was either her dropping the belt back and forth to Charlotte, or having an injury or something like that, or just the way that she was booked. So it's just like, like when it came to, when it came to that, she couldn't, really catch the break um, that she sort of deserved. But however, I would say that, and not only that, but Charlotte and Sasha definitely made history, like regardless of the outcomes for the title matches, they certainly made history because they're the very first women to ever have a Hell in a Cell match. So they're the very first women's Hell in a Cell match back in 2016. You know, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, so of course, um, as I said before, regardless of regardless of the match results, like I said, the chemistry between them was incredible. Charlotte herself even mentioned on an episode of Stone Cold's podcast when they were talking about Sasha. Charlotte herself even talked about how her dad said that Sasha was to her what Ricky Steamboat was to him. So Sasha was Charlotte's Steamboat, and I could not agree more. You know, Like I said, like I said, like when it came to the matches, it was like uh, almost like a never ending story type of thing, you know. And so but of course, back to like I said, and also like I said, not to keep jumping back and forth, but like I said, not like I said, I'm sorry, not like I said, let me start, not to keep jumping back and forth, between different matches, but one of the most iconic scenes, or at least iconic images, um, during their rivalry was a match that they had on Raw. It was a Falls Count Anywhere match, and they took the fight all the way into the crowd. And for those that are listening and those that are watching, you know what I'm talking about. I know there was a sequence. There was a spot in the match where Sasha did bank statement on Charlotte through like one of those uh, rails or whatever. In the, in the audience, and it's just the way that Sasha had Charlotte stretched in that hold. I was like, wow, this. I mean, it like I said, it was like it just showed, like this just showed that hatred, or that intensity, that rivalry, that like I said, like these are like forever rivals. For me, I would say that Sasha's top two dance partners are Bailey and Charlotte. You know, um, slight edge to Bailey just because um, of what they did in NXT, and also the history. Because they have a deeper history from the NXT matches, as well as them being tag team champions. So like I say, it goes a little bit deeper. But but that feud with Charlotte is not too far behind. However, like I said, let's start with, um, however, at the Hell in a Cell match, Charlotte ended up ended up defeating Sasha. And of course, this time Sasha's reign only lasts like 27 days. So once again, like I say, this goes to show that unfortunately, like she didn't really have the historically long uh, title runs, that I believe she truly deserved. I mean, like saying, even though Sasha's always been a transcendent talent in more ways than one, in large part because of what she does in the ring, and the way that she delivers when it comes to matches. But at the same time, I think like like say the lack of length when it comes to title reigns is certainly always been um, a mark against her, if you will. you know, and so of course, um, sorry about sorry about that. But of course, um, Sasha we're going like of course like I said, Sasha we're going to defeat Charlotte, false count anywhere. In fact, I'm sorry, like I said, in fact, like I said, that false count anywhere match on Raw. It's certainly another one of the greatest women's matches I've seen of all time, and certainly an all-time great when it comes to both of their catalogs. And eventually there was even another. Eventually there was a 30-minute Iron Woman match that took place at Roadblock in the end of the line. So even though Sasha and Bailey had the first Iron Woman match, at least when it came to NXT, but when it came to the main roster, Sasha and Charlotte had the first Iron Woman match um, when it came to the main roster. But unfortunately, in sudden death overtime, Sasha loses Charlotte, so it becomes almost like a reoccurring thing. So of course, um, after so of course, um, Sasha would eventually help Bailey defeat Charlotte, for the Raw Women's Championship on a February episode of Raw, and then at WrestleMania 33, Sasha competed in the Fatal 4-Way elimination match for the title, only for Bailey to, for Bailey, um, only for Bailey to retain the championship. And so, and of course, she'll also go on. Of course, Sasha will go on a feud with like I said, Sasha will go on to feud with Alexa Bliss as well. You know, of course, when it comes to the Raw Women's Championship, and and of course that was one of one of Sasha's more heated feuds. Like I said, not just in the ring, but also backstage as well when it came to Alexa. But of course, um, during, of course during the same time, Sasha and Bailey, we really unite for the first time, and establish what we now know as the Boss and Hug connection. Eventually, it became the golden role models later on. And the thing is, like when it comes to Sasha and Bailey, it's just like they never miss. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, no matter what, like I said, the thing about it is that like I said, no matter what, they always knew, like I said, they always knew how to fire all cylinders. And in 2018, Sasha actually, or Mercedes, formerly known as Sasha, um, like I said, competed in the first ever, like I said, competed in the first, actually at the end of 2017, um, Sasha competed in the first ever women's match in Abu Dhabi against Alexa Bliss. So she was continuously making history. And in 2018, she competed in the first ever women's Royal Rumble match, where she lasted at least 54 minutes, 46 seconds, nearly out. And as we all know, Asuka would eventually win the first ever women's Royal Rumble. And Sasha was also in the first ever women's elimination chamber match. So there's a lot of firsts tied to Sasha's name, tied to Mercedes. That's why, that's why she's constantly considered to be a history maker. And that's not an exaggeration. That's absolutely the truth. And so eventually, on an episode of Raw, after weeks of animosity that was piling up, eventually uh, Bailey betrayed Sasha um, during the eventually Bailey was the one that betrayed Sasha, and so of course um, they finally faced off. Let me start. Like I said, let me start. Um, like I said, eventually they face off, but the matches, the match in a no contest after the Riot Squad interfered, and so of course, um, like saying, of course during this time, Sasha was kind of like, um, kind of like in between, saying not like I guess not as much to really do, kind of like being stuck in matches with the Riot Squad and things like that. But of course, in between that time, she'll also have great, like I said, in between that time, she'll also have, also have some great matches against Asuka as well, you know, and that's another dance partner that Sasha has always had great chemistry with. Side note, shout out to Asuka, who's the number one contender, for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. But that's neither here nor there. So of course, so of course, like during this little, muggyish, if you will, like feud with the Riot Squad, um, in June, she eventually defeated Ruby Riott in the finals of a gauntlet match to earn the last spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match, which was eventually won by Alexa Bliss. And so throughout much of 2018, um, you know, I'm sorry, throughout much of 2018, um, Sasha and Bailey would continue to attack each other, and there were even segments, where they had to attend attend counseling to mend the relationship or maintain the friendship and things like that. So eventually, so eventually this is the part where where they reconciled and became known as the Boston Hug connection. So sorry for getting some timelines a little bit mixed up here and there. So of course, of course in that regard, um, uh, So I'm sorry, however, the reconciliation or reunion was short lived because Sasha had suffered an injury, and then and eventually and eventually returned um, later in October of 2018. And and of course, this is when she was part of the first ever uh, Evolution. The first ever women's pay-per-view, obviously known as Evolution, where her and Bailey teamed up as the Boss and Hug Connection. Um, and well, actually, they both teamed with Natalia to defeat the Riot Squad at Evolution. And so Sasha would again compete at Survivor Series as a member of Team Raw. And of course, in this match, she was the last woman um, from that team that was eventually eliminated by Asuka, thanks to Nia Jax. And not of course, Nia has of course, around the same time, Nia infamously punched Becky Lynch and broke her nose. And this is where the whole man, like I said, the whole Becky 316 phenomenon came through. So I say I say Nia Jax has a penchant for for being a horsewoman, if you will, so to speak. But Sasha would, of course, Sasha would get her revenge at the Royal Rumble as she defeated Nia Jax to earn a title match. However, on Raw, unfortunately, she lost to Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship. And but of course, during the match, Sasha ended up suffering a separated shoulder. And so at the Elimination Chamber, like I said, at the Elimination Chamber, Sasha and Bailey won the first WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. So they were the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions. Boss Hug Connection / Golden Role Models. That's why I say Bailey is Sasha's greatest dance partner. Of course, during that chamber match, the last team they eliminated to win those titles, was the team of Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville in a six tag team chamber match. So of course, in their very first title defense, the Boston Hug Connection defeated Nia Jackson, Tamina at Fastlane. Unfortunately, at WrestleMania 35, they would lose to the Iconics. Once again, another WrestleMania loss for Sasha. And this was a fatal four-way tag team match. So of course, following WrestleMania 35, this is, as we all know, Sasha canceled an appearance on Wendy Williams at the last minute, and this was during the time that I said this during the time that this was during the time where she took another hiatus, where where there were talks even then that allegedly she had quit the company. So this has been I guess this was nothing new. Like I said, but of course, as we all know, she eventually came back. And so of course, you know, like, you know, so, like I said, and of course, the thing about it was that her cancellation was due to a personal matter, as well as she's as she's later on revealed, Sasha was going through depression, and so initially she asked Vince for release. Obviously, Vince denied her request. He at the same time he granted her time off to reconsider, and so after taking that time off, Sasha after a 4 month hiatus, Sasha returned and got back with Bailey. This time, both of them were heels, and so um, and obviously, as we all know, during Sasha's return, this is when she reunited her feud with Becky Lynch, who was the man, who was known as the man at that time. This when Becky was like super duper red hot. Not saying that she isn't now, but like I said, this is like at the height of her being the man. Like seeing, and of course, like this at the time, she was the Raw Women's Champion, and of course, they had the match at Clash of the Champions, and and this was her first uh, title match back, and so of course, um, Sasha will win by disqualification, only for Becky to retain, and so their feud eventually culminated in a second women's Hell in a Cell match where Becky will go on to win. Um, However, Sasha would Sasha would eventually get drafted to SmackDown. Um, only for her to take another break from TV with another injury. So, I said this is one of the patterns of Sasha. Was that she's dealt with several injuries, and sorry, um, as sorry, um, upon her return. But the thing is, when she returned from the injury, she was the captain of the SmackDown women's team for Survivor Series, and so Sasha was the last woman standing for SmackDown in the women's Survivor Series match, who was eventually pinned by Rhea Ripley from NXT. Like I said, who eventually won, and so so of course at WrestleMania 36, of course this was the WrestleMania. This is the first WrestleMania and only WrestleMania where there were no fans. This was the Performance Center pandemic WrestleMania. So of course at this one, this is when she was in a fatal five way elimination match. For Bailey's SmackDown Women's Championship. Of course, you know, so of course, eventually Bailey retained, and um, it's like I said, like I said, Christopher. So of course, following, following WrestleMania 36, um, Sasha and Bailey, started to tease, a possible feud in the future. With the emphasis, with the narrative, really driving the point that Sasha was the main reason for Bailey's success, and that that Bailey was responsible for for most of Sasha's losses. So they'll use that previous track record. Um, but despite all that, um, Sasha and Bailey, I said Bailey and Sasha, whatever you want to call them, they reclaimed the women's tag team championship. So Sasha was a two-time um, women's tag team champion with Bailey, and of course, those episodes SmackDown where they defeated Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, later on Nikki Ash, and so of course, um, during the title reign, that's when they started feud with Asuka, and of course this is what led to that Raw Women's Championship match at the horror show at Extreme Rules between Sasha and Asuka. You know, of course ended in a rather controversial fashion, and so at least 8 days later on Raw, um, Sasha would have a rematch, and this time she defeated Asuka on Raw to become a 5-time Raw Women's Champion. And so with this win, of course, Bailey and Sasha, Sasha and Bailey, whatever, they became the first female tag team and fifth overall in history to hold singles and tag team titles simultaneously. They're definitely one of, if not the greatest women's tag team of all time. Golden role models, you know, um, and so so by this point, by this point we're in the pandemic era, if you will. So of course, during August, this is when Asuka and Sasha will continue their feud, and it eventually culminated at one of the big fours. Feuds will usually culminate at a big four. This time, obviously, at SummerSlam, where Sasha lost the championship back to Asuka, and then a week later, at Payback, the Golden Role Models dropped the women's tag titles, obviously, to Nia Jax and Shayna. So and then on September 4th episode of SmackDown, after losing the rematch to to Nia and Shayna, Bailey turned on Sasha, by attacking her, and obviously this isn't the first time that Bailey's turned on Sasha. So of course eventually Sasha became a face in the process of the Golden Role Models breaking up, and the feud eventually culminated in that famous Hell in a Cell match. And sorry, of course, like I said, the feud eventually culminated Hell in a Cell 2020, where Sasha made Bailey tap out with a bank statement, along with the chair. Of course, during the match, of course, that was a match with Sasha, who dressed up as Felicia from Darkstalkers. For those that are gamers, like that was one of the highlights of that match, and this match is where Sasha continues to make history. She became third. This is where she became the third women's Grand Slam and fourth Triple Crown champion. And so of course in November, Sasha defeated Bailey in the rematch for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And so of course this is what ended her drought of unsuccessful title reigns. This is where ended her drought of these short of these short title reigns. And so of course eventually she'll go on and feud with Carmella. Carmella, as she defeated her. As she defeated Carmella at TLC to retain the SmackDown Women's Championship, and she'll defeat her again. She'll defeat her again at the Royal Rumble. However, that same night, Sasha has a new challenger in the wings, EST Bianca Belair, where Bianca would win the Women's Royal Rumble in 2021. Automatically grant her opportunity to challenge, challenge for any women's championship of her choice. So Bianca's target is Sasha, and so this is, like I said, this is where worlds collide, so to speak, and history is made at WrestleMania 37, where we have, for the first time ever, we have two black women main eventing a WrestleMania. Not just two black women, just two black wrestlers, period, main eventing a WrestleMania match. And like I said, this match certainly has the historical impact in more ways than one. And like I said, not only is it great because of the significance of it, but also from a match standpoint, and certainly Sasha, continue to enter legendary status in the sense that she was becoming more almost like in a vein of like Shawn Michaels, in the sense that you could still have victory even in defeat. Even though by this point Sasha was still winless at WrestleMania, but still, but still her thing was to make her opponent look so much better, and she just brought the absolute best out of Bianca. And but at the same time, obviously we all know Bianca has never been a slouch, but being in the ring with somebody like Sasha was a proving ground for her, and she certainly stepped up to that challenge and met it head on and conquered it, and so this was the rise of the EST, and it reminded me of like WrestleMania 23. We had John Cena versus Shawn Michaels, in the sense that since HBK was the veteran, and it was more more dynamic in the ring, and the one that was really like leading the way when it came to the match, just making Cena look so much better, and I just because of the fact that Bianca is compared so much to Cena when it comes to women's wrestlers, it makes sense that I use that analogy, use that comparison. But and of course the two most famous spots in the match were when Bianca carried Sasha up um, in like a military press, gorilla press, and walked up the stairs while still, like when Bianca um, walked up the stairs, to get back to the ring while still holding Sasha like this, and and put like with the way she carried it and put it back in the ring. That and also um, uh, Bianca's hair whip. Like I said, that spot, like I said, that previous spot where Bianca's, like I said, where Bianca's carrying Sasha into the ring while walking up the steps, and also when Bianca used her hair as that whip, and the way that you could hear it, like, oh my gosh, like I mean, it was like so, like I mean, it was like ground shaking, you know what I mean, like with the sound of that, and of course Bianca, delivers with the KOD and wins, and the look on Sasha's face, that smile on her face, like it was just so fulfilling for her, even though she lost, she still felt victorious because her and Bianca made cultural history in so many ways. Um, like saying that's an iconic match, um, an iconic moment in more ways than one. You know, and so um, so of course, um, I mean, like saying that was, like saying that was a like saying that Star, like I said, that was a very historic match, and if anything, when it came to the main roster, that was actually Sasha's longest title reign, which lasted 167 days. Um, so Sasha takes a break during the spring, returns in July, and this is where things start to get kind of sticky. Um, so she makes a return, and she's booked to face Bianca, the women's championship, SmackDown Women's title at SummerSlam. But Sasha was pulled from the event, or at least um, she pulled herself out from the event. But they still advertised it anyway. So this is, and this is where, like I said, with the floodgates open. This is, with the infamous 26 seconds um, opens up and things like that. So, like I said, that was a very shaky situation. Um, but but after that, Sasha, Sasha competed. Um, but of course, Sasha competed in a triple threat match at Crown Jewel with her and Bianca, and Becky Lynch. But of course, um, Becky would go on to retain the Raw Women's Championship. And so, at Survivor Series, Sasha became the captain of the SmackDown Women's team, where she was eliminated by countout. Of course, following interference from some of her own teammates. And so, of course, this is where we head into, as of right now, sort of like her last dance in WWE as she of course, um, in January 2022, Sasha had sustained an injury during a house show in a match against Charlotte, and of course, let's start over. Like start, of course, um, she obviously she'll make a return she'll make she'll make a return to SmackDown and announce herself as a participant for the Women's Royal Rumble. And at that Royal Rumble, obviously that's when she came out dressed as Sailor Moon, as well. No, and of course Sasha in the first, and she eliminated Melina and Kelly before eventually being eliminated, surprisingly, by Queen Zelina. And so of course, of course, on the February 25th episode of SmackDown, Ric Flair's birthday, by the way, Naomi announced that her and Sasha were going to challenge for the women's tag team titles. And in night 2 of WrestleMania 38, Sasha finally got the win that she had been looking for at WrestleMania for a long time. She was no longer winless. Her reverse Undertaker streak had been broken. When her and Naomi um, became the women's tag team champions. So of course, it's the first time for Naomi in a record-tying third time for Sasha to become the women's tag team champions. Um, so, of course, of course, that sorry, their title defense on the May 13th episode of SmackDown would eventually be their final TV appearance. So of course, or at least the final televised WWE appearance in a match at a live event. Like I said, untelevised live event. May 15th proved that it was Sasha's last match. And of course, as we all know, May 16th, this is when they had, the infamous walkout and, everything that happened after the dispute with Vince McMahon as well as John Laurinaitis. And, so of course, there was a statement, WWE released a statement, saying that they walked out, they walked into John Laurinaitis' office with a suitcase in their hands, placed their belts on the desk and walked out. And so the thing is, they're originally booked, for the main event, which had to be rearranged and reworked and everything like that. But at the same time, of course, like I'm not gonna beat a dead horse with this whole thing, as we all know. That, of course, obviously, they were both dealt a bad hand. They were, called unprofessional in every other word except a child of God, basically. For the decision that they made, because the thing is, they wanted to, like I said, they wanted more, when it came to the women's tag team titles, and so and for that to be undercut, like cut under the legs to the point where they had to face each other, whatever the case may be, and just devalue what they could bring to the table, as women's tag team champions. And of course, and the funny thing is, of course, as I'm recording this episode, I'm wearing a shirt. Shout out to Strictly for the Culture. Shout out to them for this cool Triple Crown shirt that I love to wear. With this was, of course, this was after WrestleMania. Of course, there's a picture of Bianca as Raw Women's Champion, wearing her suit, and like I said, Bianca's in the middle, and with Sasha and Naomi, at each side, holding their tag team titles. So you have Bianca as a Raw Women's Champion, and of course you have Sasha and Naomi as the newly crowned Women's Tag Team Champions. So all three of them, all three of them together on one shirt. And this is like only time that we'll ever see them together. And this is off camera. It's not even on WWE TV. This is a backstage picture off camera. And this is the only time, that we will ever see them together like this. And this picture represents the faction that never was. And this is when they take that hiatus. And of course, Mercedes, and the thing her and Trinity or Naomi kept a low profile. They kept a very low profile. They showed up at like I said, at red carpet premieres for She-Hulk, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, fashion shows, you name it, things like that. Just stuck side by side throughout all of this, and they bet on themselves. And of course, for those that are wondering if Sasha was going to come back at the end of last year, she debunked all that and said like, nope. And little do we know that she had a huge surprise for us at the beginning of this year when she made her long-awaited return, along with the debut at New Japan, where she challenged Kairi Sane for the IWGP Women's Championship, and of course, this culminated with their famous match at Battle in the Valley, which took place the same night as the Elimination Chamber. And of course that match, was absolutely spectacular. Shout out to those that got a chance to see it. Shout out to Stephanie Hardy for the way that, for the way that she covered that match. For the way that she broke that match down. And like I said, for her, like I said, that's her goat. Mercedes Monet is the assignment. I mean, is the conversation. She's the blueprint. She understood the assignment, if you will. What I mean? So she's a history maker, a world changer, a legend, a needle mover. You know, um, and so like I said, this is just another great feather in the hat. And um, like I said, sorry for the super long episode, but the thing is, I'm going to go into, in my estimation, for me, for me, what I would say are, so- what I would say are Mercedes' greatest matches. So normally I do like a top 10, but but the thing is, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna go to my top 10 um, Mercedes slash Sasha matches. So number 10, like so for me, so for me, the number 10 would be her fatal forward match at NXT with Charlotte, Becky, and Bailey. So that's number 10 right there. That fatal forward match at NXT. So NXT Takeover Revolution, the one I just mentioned earlier. So like I said, that fatal forward match at that number 10, and number 9, her match with Kyrie Sane and Battle in the Valley, and number 8, her WrestleMania 32 triple threat match with Charlotte and Becky. So that's number 8. Number 7 is her Great American Bash match with Io Shirai, Great American Bash 2020. That's number 7. And number 6, the Falls Count Anywhere match with Charlotte on Raw in 2016 that I mentioned before. And so of course, at number 5, but I'm gonna go with her match with Asuka at Survivor Series 2020. Number 4, her Hell in a Cell match with Bailey. Number 3, WrestleMania 37 versus Bianca Belair. Number 2, the Iron Woman match with Bailey at NXT Takeover Respect. And number 1, NXT Takeover Brooklyn versus Bailey. Her match with Bailey, NXT Takeover Brooklyn. That's my number 1 Sasha Banks Mercedes Monet match of all time. So those are my top 10 Sasha slash Mercedes matches. And so, um, for those that are watching live, and for those that are eventually watching later, thank you very much for taking this time to see me cover, such a legendary career. And I wish nothing but the best for Mercedes Monet, aka the women's Mandalorian. So I said thank you very much for watching, and of course enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great night.